But first, President Obama under fire from members of his own party over the issue of outsourcing, the exporting of American jobs to cheap foreign labor markets. President Obama has been criticizing Governor Romney as what he calls a pioneer of outsourcing. But the president's own Jobs and Competitiveness Council is stacked with CEOs whose companies are among the country's biggest outsourcers. Here are just a few of them. GE CEO Jeffrey Immelt heads the council. According to the SEC filings, GE shed 27,000 jobs in this country and added 18,000 overseas between 2001 and 2011. And just weeks after calling on American businesses to create jobs at home last summer, Immelt's company announced it was moving its Wisconsin-based X-ray division to China. A GE spokesman points out that the company did raise U.S. employment by 10,000 between 2010 and 2011. American Express, also on the President's Jobs Council, they were sued by their own customers last summer over privacy concerns because Amex uses foreign call centers. There's something for everybody in the Amex story, by the way. American Express's CEO, Kenneth Janot, once worked for Bain. American Express hasn't responded to our request for comment. We've also reached out to the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce for an accounting of the total number of American jobs offshored and outsourced over the past decade. No answer. We think that's because the federal government, some might suggest purposely, doesn't track and report any detail on the jobs that are lost specifically to outsourcing. The first effort to account, by the way, for American jobs lost to outsourcing was back in 2004. Which just happens to be the year that I wrote and published a best-selling book on the practice of corporate America. The book was entitled Exporting America. By the way, the unemployment rate that year was 5.5%. For more now on the president's record on outsourcing and his charges of outsourcing against Governor Romney, we turn to Fox News Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry for the report.
For days, President Obama has been running with a Washington Post report claiming presumptive Republican nominee Mitt Romney was the father of outsourcing at Bain Capital. Even though independent fact-checkers have debunked the charge, today the president doubled down.
Governor Romney has experience owning companies that were called pioneers in the business of outsourcing. And as long as I'm president, I will keep fighting to make sure jobs are located here in the United States of America.
Yet the Washington Post had a new report today quoting liberal groups upset the president has not gotten tough on China or kept other campaign promises to stop the flow of jobs being shipped overseas. The Romney camp put copies of the story on the seats of journalists riding on the press charter, and the candidate blasted away.
By putting money into energy companies, solar and wind energy companies that end up making their products outside the United States. If there's an outsourcer in chief, it's the President of the United States, not the guy who's running to replace him.
Republican National Chair Reince Priebus shadowed the president in Iowa today and unveiled a website slamming him for giving taxpayer funds to companies like Fisker, which is making sports cars in Finland.
Talking about the president taking taxpayer money, not here in this country, but sending it overseas.
White House officials note the president pushed tax breaks for companies to stop outsourcing in his last State of the Union, but Congress has not acted.
Governor, will you release your income tax records?
Time will tell.
And the Obama camp is stepping up its attacks on Romney's offshore accounts, with Vice President Biden actually using today's speech to a prominent Hispanic group to demand Romney release more of his tax returns.
He wants you to show your papers, but he won't show us his. It's kind of fascinating.
While the president pressured his Republican opponent in an interview with WMUR in New Hampshire. What's important is, if you are running for president, is that the American people know who you are and what you've done and that you're an open book. And that's been true of every presidential candidate dating all the way back to Mitt Romney's father.
Now, the president's push for more disclosure comes just 3 weeks after he invoked executive privilege to shield his Attorney General Eric Holder from turning over more documents in the Fast and Furious scandal. Lou?
And Henry, that's one of the things we love about you, your sense of irony. We appreciate it. Good to talk with you.
Good to see you, Lou. You literally wrote the book.
and that what I did, actually. Think about it. 8 years ago. My.
Head of the curve.
There you go. Thanks so much, Ed.
Good to see you.